Welcome back to the Schools of Excellence podcast. Today we are talking about for-profit blind spots, why good schools struggle financially. So one of the things that I notice a lot when it comes to working with schools is financials is always kind of a big point of contention. And everyone's always thinking about it. And there's so many different ways that you can think about financials. And so today, specifically when it comes to enrollment, I want to talk about the profit blind spots that a lot of schools find themselves in. So one of the things that happens is parents come in, they tour your school, they love everything about it, they seem like they're ready to enroll, and then they disappear. Or when your enrollment numbers are fine, quote unquote, but you know that they could be better. And so you keep thinking about how is this impacting my financials, right? Sometimes enrollment and financials are two sides of the same coin. And so I think that there's a lot of blinders that we sometimes don't recognize when it comes to enrollment. So let's start with the first blind spot, which is the false comfort zone. Okay. So you know that sense of the false comfort zone, right? When your enrollment numbers are kind of like, we're doing really well, we're mostly full, you're kind of probably running at like an 80 to 85% capacity. And it's easy to feel comfortable when you're kind of in that lane. And the dangerous part of this comfort zone is it actually is costing you thousands of dollars. So let me show you what I mean. Let's say you have 2 open spots in your pre-K classroom. Okay, just 2 spots, right? It doesn't sound like a lot, but if we do the math at, let's say, $1,200 per month, those 2 spots add up to $2,500 in lost revenue every single month. And that's $30,000 a year that you're leaving on the table thinking everything's fine. But it actually gets worse because when you're in a comfort zone, you're not just losing the obvious money from empty spots, you're also likely missing the hidden costs, like when families withdraw with barely any notice because your retention systems aren't solid. So because you're in this comfort zone, it's like people start withdrawing, but you don't really recognize, and like you're missing cues. Or when you're so focused on filling those 2 spots that you miss the 3 families who would have enrolled in your toddler program if you had a better follow-up system. And so the real kicker is that, and I see this all the time in schools, is the biggest danger isn't actually empty spots. It's the danger in thinking you don't need to improve things because they're good enough. The comfort trap. It's like having a slow leak in your tire, right? And you're like, well, I could still drive on it. Well, yeah, you could still drive on it until you can't. And so I worked with a school last month who had just such a similar situation. They were at 80% capacity. They felt really good about it. And what we did was we started to actually implement some better follow-up systems inside of their center. And so not only did they fill all of their remaining spots within 2 weeks, but they also created a wait list that started to generate an additional $45,000 in revenue for their summer program. And all of this is because she decided we're not going to be in the comfort zone trap. And, we're not going to be like, we're mostly full and that's good enough. No, she worked on some of the follow-up systems that are such a critical part in ensuring that the school remains financially viable. So that's the first blind spot. Let's talk about the second blind spot that's draining your revenue. And that is the invisible money leaks. And here's the thing. This is not about pricing, because I know you've probably spent hours agonizing over your rates, making sure they're competitive but still profitable. And having the right pricing doesn't matter if your money is leaking through holes in your enrollment process. And that is why this is the second blind spot. So let me show you what I mean. Let's say you have your tour process, right? You're giving tours, but they're not necessarily consistent, right? So let's say you have your director, let's call her Sarah. She gives tours on Mondays and tells families about your amazing curriculum, right? She goes on and on and on and talks about your amazing curriculum. But then you have Maria, who's another person on your admin team, who also gives tours. And she gave a tour on Wednesday, and she highlighted your beautiful facility that you just redid, right? Both are great features of your school, curriculum, facility. But families are getting very different expectations and experiences when they're coming to the tour. And so the inconsistency actually causes you enrollment because you're not controlling which selling points resonate most. You're not understanding which part of the profit messaging, which I talk about in Enrollment Engine, our new enrollment program, You don't have clarity over which part of the messaging and which part of the key selling points actually converts our target families and our perfect fit families. You can't know because everyone's trying different things, right? And you don't have that clear line. And that's what I call, the follow-up black hole, right? So let's say you have like a family tours, they love your school, and then they say, we'll think about it, right? Which is a whole separate thing that I'm going to talk about in a different episode. And then they slip into the void. So you really want to follow up, but then, your child got sick and then there was a staff meeting and then you had to handle an emergency. And the next thing you know, 2 weeks have passed and the family enrolled in a different school. So the biggest leak, even further than that, is the misconversion opportunities happening literally right under your nose. It's a parent who asks about your rates, and instead of showing value, you just email them your price sheet. It's the family who says, well, it's a really far commute. Instead of you just accept that objection of like, yeah, it really is too far, instead of actually showing them why your school is actually worth the drive. So we worked with an owner, has a couple of locations, and her school was leaking enrollments like constantly. And we fixed just one of these issues of like the messaging in her tour process. And also like the actual systemic follow-up approach, which is what I call profit pipeline. And I teach that inside of Enrollment Engine. I'm actually going to be talking about that also on the workshop, the Daily Profit Plan, which is coming up. And so within 1 week, she was able to enroll 3 new families from following our profit pipeline process, right? These were families who toured with the exact same questions and concerns as families who hadn't enrolled the month before. The only difference is now she had an actual system of how to handle the objections and the concerns and how to follow up. So fixing the leaks brings in families. And this is what, again, I'm going to be teaching you guys in the Daily Profit Plan workshop, how to identify these leaks in your school, and most importantly, how to fix them with simple system. Okay, so those are the first 2 blind spots. Let's go to the third blind spot. And this one is going to feel a little bit uncomfortable, and it's your team. So before you get defensive, and I totally understand the instinct, I want to be clear. This is not about how amazing your teachers are with children. I know your teachers are fantastic educators and they're amazing with kids. I know they love the kids, and I know that they create magical moments in the classroom every single day. Okay, being great with kids doesn't make you great at showcasing the school's value when you are touring parents. It's a completely different skill set to know how to be amazing with children in the classroom and teach a developmentally appropriate curriculum and actually know how to showcase that from a marketing angle to the families. And what happens a lot is owners or directors will tell me things like, but my teachers aren't marketers, my teachers aren't sellers, my teachers aren't that. Yes, they are. If they are in your school, every single person is always needing to sell, to serve, to market. Like that's part of life. Dating is marketing and selling, literally. Like you're selling yourself, right? Especially how much have we productized just dating in general and relationships, which is a whole separate conversation. And I don't want to go off key here, but absolutely your teachers have to know the basics of how to showcase what it is that they're doing inside of their classroom. So I'm going to give you an example. Okay. So I was coaching a school and she had a teacher, we'll call her Jenny. And she was like her best pre-K teacher. And parents walked into the classroom during a tour and a parent said, what are the kids learning here? Right? Like very simple, basic, standard question that a parent would ask at a tour. And Jenny, who is a phenomenal teacher, who actually has like one of the most amazing lesson plans in action in that moment, she turned to the parent and she's like, oh, they're just playing right now. And I heard this and I was like, they are not just playing. They are developing fine motor skills. They are practicing peer negotiation. They are working on mathematical concepts through block pay. But none of that was communicated to the family that was touring. And so this is what I mean by the gap between a good tour and a converting tour. Your teachers are doing amazing work inside of the classroom. But if they do not know how to articulate the value of that work to parents, you're losing enrollments. And it's not just about classroom tours, right? Think about daily drop-off and pickup conversations. Every interaction is either building value for your program or accidentally diminishing it. So let's say, for example, a parent says like, wow, $1,200 a month, that's a lot. Does your team, your admin team, your directors, your front office, do they know how to respond? Or do they just like awkwardly smile and kind of change the subject? Here's the good news. Good news. This is actually one of the easiest blind spots to fix because when I work with schools, we work on this concept called train the troops, right? So I actually worked at the school in Florida and went there in person, and I helped them implement something that I call the value vision. And I have this inside of my Train the Troops curriculum inside of Enrollment Engine. And with that training for her actual teachers, which I recorded now, and it's part of our enrollment engine, their tour conversion went up because they had the same teachers, the same classroom, the same amazing work. I just gave them better words on how to showcase what it is that they're doing effectively, right? The visual storytelling and representation of their classroom. And I think it's so important. This is what I talk about extensively. It's not about changing who your teachers are. I'm not turning your teachers into used car salesmen. This is about giving them tools to showcase the incredible value they're already creating inside of the classroom. They're working so hard already to develop this amazing curriculum. Let's make sure that they understand how to showcase it, right? It's about helping them translate all of their educational expertise into terms that parents say, yes, this is exactly what I want and need for my child. Right? And this is what we're doing in the Daily Profit Plan workshop. I'm going to show you exactly how to train your team to become enrollment ambassadors, providing exceptional care and education for your children and becoming enrollment ambassadors. So that was the third blind spot. Let's go into the fourth and final blind spot that will put really close to home. It's called reactive scheduling. And it's like the I'll get to it later trap. So you know exactly what I'm talking, right? It's the mental note that you made to follow up with the touring family from last week, the email you were going to send to the mom who asked about your infant program at the Trader Joe's checkout, the training you were planning to do with teachers about handling parent questions, like all of these things. But then life hits, right? The teacher calls in sick, the parent needs a meeting, the licensing inspector shows up unannounced, and suddenly all of these revenue generating activities get pushed to quote unquote later. So I had a conversation with an owner about a month ago, and she had 7 families tour the school in 1 week. Great tours, excited parents, perfect fit for her program, and 0 families enrolled. 0. And so we dug into what was going on, and what we had discovered in the first 5 minutes of talking to her was she actually hadn't followed up with any of them because it got busy. 7 families at $1,200 a month. That is $8,000 in monthly revenue. That is $100,000 lost because follow-up wasn't systematically scheduled in her calendar. $100,000. That is 6 figures of cash that was left not collected because she did not have follow-up scheduled inside of her calendar. This is why I'm obsessed with this. It's called Profit Calendar. It is understanding that your calendar is literally where everything lives and dies by when it comes to enrollment. And people roll their eyes all the time when I talk about calendar, but I am telling you, it is everything. And here's the example why, right? It is everything. Your calendar is not just a tool for managing your to-do list. It is your most powerful enrollment tool. When you use your calendar correctly, it is a revenue-generating machine. Every time you say, I'll get to it later, what you're really saying is, I'm okay with potentially losing this enrollment. Every time you push off a team training session, what you're really saying is, I'm okay with my teachers continuing to undersell my program. And here's when things get really interesting. So we had a different director we were working with inside of our program with the profit calendar system. And instead of constantly hoping that she would find time to follow up, our coaches guided her how to block very specific enrollment generating activity into her schedule. So she had 30 minutes in the morning, every single morning, where she did fresh inquiry follow-up. So anyone that inquired while she was sleeping, she did fresh inquiry follow-up. Then she had 1 hour every Tuesday and Thursday for touring family check-ins. And then she did 2 hours every month for team training on enrollment to help them understand the parent avatars and all of these things. And so what happened is her enrollment conversions went up by over 20% in just a month. Same number of inquiries, same amazing program, same wonderful teachers. The only difference was she actually had it in her calendar. So this is what I mean when I say calendar is your most powerful enrollment tool. When you stop letting your day run and you start running your day with profit generating intention, everything changes. And this is not about working more hours or hiring more staff. This is about transforming the hours you already have into a strategic enrollment machine. And that is what I'm going to teach on my upcoming workshop, the Daily Profit Plan. You definitely want to sign up. So here's the amazing thing, right? Every single one of the blind spots that we spoke about today, they are completely fixable. And I don't mean in some theoretical perfect world scenario. I mean right now in your school with your team in the middle of the daily chaos, all of this can be changed. Everything. So I spoke about the profit blind spots that are costing you thousands each month, the invisible money leaks draining the revenue, your amazing teachers who just need the right tools, and the schedule that's been working against you instead of for you. If you are loving the Schools of Excellence podcast and have gotten any value out of it for your school, I would love if you can do two things for me. One, subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And two, can you please leave us a review? Reviews help other school leaders know that this is the place to learn how to build a school of excellence. And I would be so grateful if you can do that for us. Your help and support makes this show to be able to be listened by the thousands of other school leaders all around the world. Thanks so much for listening, for giving us your time and attention each and every week. And I appreciate that you have joined us.